Wolfgang gives drive the 13 Mitigator Ford Fusion. I'd like to thank you for listening to Let's Talk Racing.tv.
Driver of the number 5 Kiker Motorsports Camry. Welcome to Let's Talk Racing TV.
With Rockingham Speedway. Thanks for listening to Let's Talk Racing.
I'm Teddy Peters, driver of the number 17 Toyota NASCAR Camp World Truck Series, and you're listening to Let's Talk Racing. Hey guys, I'm Daytona 500 winner Trevor Bain, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Racing.
No, we didn't.
But no, it looked good when it was up there, so I thought, oh yeah, well, that's perfect. Explains the show, and then we got our little comment under it.
Hang on just a second, Brian.
Hold on. Yeah, we're on the air now, Brian. So I want to thank everybody for joining Let's Talk Racing. Already on the phone, Brian, it's Stickel, right? Stickel, PR director for Knoxville Raceway. If anybody's out there watching tonight, and I've had so many comments on my Facebook and everything, this is dirt night. We're not going to talk NASCAR. We're not going to talk about the electronic fuel injections that seem to keep screwing up. It's dirt, and the lineup tonight is wide open. We got Brian on from Knoxville Raceway. Anytime you talk sprint car racing, Knoxville's the place to be. Rick Eckert's going to join us here in a little bit. We've got Mr. the King, Kelly Shyrock, 9-time US MTS modified champion down in Texas. He's going to call in for us. And I got two special, and I'll talk to them about them in a little bit. But Brian, how you doing up there in Iowa tonight?
We're doing great. The weather's good. We're getting ready for racing.
Yeah. We were just talking about it. Your season starts. What's the dates?
April 21st is our season opener. It's Pella Motors Race for Your School night, and it's a kind of a new promotion for us that night, where all the kids get in free, and then for every $15 ticket we sell from those parents, $5 of that will go back to their respective schools. So if your school's not involved, get it involved and raise some money for it. Should be a good night and a big night, and we've got a lot planned.
Knox, when everybody, and I just said it on air, when everybody talks about sprint cars, they bring up Knoxville, but you guys run other events there too, don't you?
We do. We've got, our next biggest event besides the Knoxville Nationals is probably the Lucas Oil Late Model Knoxville Nationals, and that's at the very end of our season, September 27th to 29th, and it's up until last year it was never a sanctioned event with anybody. We kept it open, and last year we decided to sanction it with Lucas Oil, which I think was a good move for us. And it's just a great event, and we love having those guys at the track, and it's really their only appearance. But then we also do a AMA Grand National Flat Track event earlier in September, and then a couple modified races, the Harris Clash in July, and then actually the day after our opening night on April 21st, April 22nd, we're doing a hobby stock, sport mod, modified, and stock car shootout. And that's kind of a new event for us, and we'll just see how that goes.
How is it now? I think I know the answer to this, but I'm going to let you kind of explain it. How has the crowds been for Knoxville? How have you guys been doing in them stands all year?
they've been a struggle the last. Well, I mean, it's been the last 5 years anyway. But I think we're coming over the I guess what I'd call not a slump, but a challenging time, in that our numbers have been steady the last few years. But they've never been like they were back in the 80s or early 90s. Which is kind of where we want to get back to. With everybody doing so many other things, television, kids' ball games, casinos, we're struggling to provide affordable family entertainment as well, and keeping it affordable and paying good purses so these guys can keep running is a balance. But we're doing okay. We want to sell out the Knoxville Nationals this year, at least on Saturday night. We haven't done that for quite some time, and we're looking at doing HBO pay-per-view for that event. We feel if we do that, then we can actually sell it out on Saturday night, and hopefully Friday as well.
So we've gone from TNN to Speed Vision, and we're going to HBO pay-per-view for the Nationals. Tony Stewart tried it a couple of years ago, and it worked very well for his dream, or prelude to the dream race. How do you think it's going to work with you all?
Well, I think it's going to work. I think it's going to work real well. We're doing it for a couple reasons. One, not only do we put a lot of promotion behind the Nationals, but HBO will as well. And so we'll get promotion in virtually every market across the country promoting the Knoxville Nationals. And we feel that'll help sell the event out. But then we also feel, with the legacy, with the tradition, with the history of the Knoxville Raceway, it is the biggest sprint car race in the world. We think there's a lot of people who can't make it out here to the event, and we think they'll appreciate the fact that they can see it live that night, and it'll be affordably priced for everybody, and we can do pretty well with it.
We were talking the other day, and you've been at Knoxville for about 8 years, and have you always been a race fan?
I have been racing of some sort. My background is, first with mountain biking, but then I worked a few years with the NHRA as their Pacific Division director before I came here.
Describe. I always try to describe Knoxville to people, and I know you've watched races. Describe what it is to see 28 sprint cars flying there at Knoxville. Just give me the first time you ever saw it. What was your impression?
Oh man, I mean, it's you listen to people and you hear people who've been here and you hear them tell their stories. But my first experience here was back when I was a youth, and we'd come to the races and you'd get up in the stands and you'd be as close as you could, to the front of the stand. And those cars would just come by, and I'd get goosebumps. I mean, chills would run up my spine, and then to see those guys enter that first turn, just dicing for the best position, and they're diving low and going high and trying to pass each other, and continuing that all the way around the track, lap after lap after lap. I mean, it just doesn't get any more exciting than that. And that's what I tell people, that it's the Knoxville Nationals and the races at Knoxville Raceway are really cultural experiences that show you what racing really is, and really kind of take you back to the early days of racing, where it's all about the driver and the machine and putting those two together for the best combination. And we try and keep that tradition alive every week and weekend, and certainly for our bigger events as well.
You've actually got people coming from Australia to win the championship at Knoxville. I mean, I heard an interview with Danny Lazowski here the other day, and he wants to come back and get 10 championships.
Yeah, and he's got a shot. He gets the right people behind him, the right partner behind him. I mean, he won our track championship last year, and and 3 years ago as well. So he runs very hard at Knoxville, knows the track well, and knows what it takes to win there. I don't know if I've ever seen anybody that can run the bottom line as good as he can. And it's, Australia, we love the Australians, the people from New Zealand. We don't have an exact number, but we probably get close to 1,000 people from Australia, New Zealand, who come over every year for the Knoxville Nationals.
And you got guys that stay in here. They stay in country just to race there, and like you said, Australia, New Zealand. How many? Have you ever figured out how many different states and how many different countries have raced at Knoxville Raceway?
Well, we've had every state represented, and then of course Australia, New Zealand, England, Denmark. There's one other, but it escapes me right now. But and a lot of those guys from Australia will come over, and they've made Knoxville their home. Skip Jackson, Kerry Madsen, Brooke Tatnall, Lynn Jeffrey. They've all moved to the States, and at one point or another, Knoxville has been their weekly racing. So it's economic development on a grand scale.
What's your favorite part of being, now you're the PR director now, we're going to get this straight. What's your favorite part of your job there? What have you just grown that you love to do every week?
You know what? I love events, and I love the people that come, and just seeing them have such a great time in Knoxville is really, for me, it's like a drug almost. Seeing people in the stands getting excited when the race cars come around, and then at the end of the night watching them leave talking about, this guy put a move on the other guy that was so close, but, they came out victorious and coming out of the stands in a great mood and ready to come back the next week. I mean, that's what really, really is my favorite part. Seeing the people have a great time and the racers put on a great show, and that's what we strive for every week, and hopefully we come close.
It's kind of fun talking to them people that say, I was here in 19 and I remember this, and some of the stories that track could tell.
Oh yes, absolutely. We love those stories, and not just the spectators, but the drivers too. I mean, how long's Kinzer? How many championships has he won? And during the Nationals, we try and get those guys up on stage for a little while and at least reminisce a little bit about the old times and what it was to win back then compared to now and things like that.
Who's your favorite guy? And I know you get a chance to meet a lot of the former drivers and drivers now. Who's the one that really stands out, and who's the most fun to talk to? Who's the best one to talk to, I should say?
Best driver to talk to?
Yeah.
Well, the guy that's really making a name for himself and is bound to win the Knoxville National some years, Brian Brown. I mean, he's a real go-getter. He's a great representative of sponsors, and just does a great job for his sponsors. And he's a past Knoxville Raceway champion. But all in all, there's nobody better than the guest you have on later, Doug Wolfgang. He's got he's still many people's favorite driver, and I think always will be. And the memorabilia that people have of him, they wouldn't give that up for anything. So those guys, and all the drivers, you gotta have a lot of respect for them. They put their lives on the line and put on a great show, not because it's a great payday, but because that's what they love doing.
Now, I haven't heard, this is kind of all new with me, Doug Clark, is he still in the flag stand?
He is. Doug does a great job for us, and he wouldn't Unless he's in the hospital, he wouldn't miss a race for anything. Down from South Dakota and is there every Saturday night, every race. Just does a great job. Keeps the drivers in line and keeps the show moving.
And he does a doggone good job at that, doesn't he?
He does. And his boy Justin, he's the apprentice, if you will.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's there every night as well. So Doug's son, Justin Clark.
Well, listen, Brian, I'm gonna get you out of here because we got Rick Eckert calling in.
No problem.
Knoxville Nationals in August, the 27th.
The Nationals start August 2nd, and then the 410s end August 11th. So we want people to come see us for 10 days.
For 10 whole days. And that town erupts, doesn't it?
Yeah. You got, as I mentioned, you got a cultural festival all day, every day that culminates each night with some of the greatest, best track racing, open wheel racing you'll ever experience. So don't miss it.
Don't miss it. I'm going to be getting with you. We're going to get some links. We're going to get you. We wouldn't need to get this out down here because I know there's a lot of Virginia people that love to come up and see that.
Well, we'd love to have them.
All right, Brian, you take care, and we're going to move on, and we'll be talking to you soon.
All right. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Brian.
Bye.
Bye. Sorry, Doc. I didn't know. I was just like, call me? Okay. Guest number 2. Rick.
Which line are you
1. Huh?
Wrong line. These two are unlimited.
I got you.
Be screwing up the bills.
Hello?
Rick.
Yes.
Hey, this is Matt with Let's Talk Racing, and we're on the air. You ready to get into this?
I'm ready.
As ready as you can be. I know he's a hurting man today. We had a mouth problem, but we're going to make through this and get you up here. Rick, give us a little background about you and get people started. I know who you are, but let's let them know who you are.
I am the 2011 World Outlaw Champion, dirt late model champion, not the sprint car. And I've raced dirt late models since like 1984, a long time. So I'm an old guy.
You're
An old guy? Why would you think that?
That was a long time ago.
Now, you've been racing. You've always run late models, and like you said, 1985 you started, and you've been all over. You actually were running for the championship last year, and you just got nudged out by a young kid just by a couple of points, didn't you?
Yeah, we had a couple of years where we were close and got beat out. It's all young kids I raced with, most of them. Josh Richards won it the last 2 years, and Darrell Lanigan won it the year before that. So, it's been we've been right there the last several years, and we've been racing World Outlaws since the inception of the series. So it was really cool to finally win it.
Dirt late models. What drew you to that? What got you started into these dirt late models?
Well, I'm from central Pennsylvania, where it's actually mainly sprint car territory. And my father had raced dirt late models, and my grandfather raced dirt late models, and I started in figure 8 cars, and then got a street stock, and then I got a limited late model, and then I finally got a late model, and then for a little bit, for about a year, I ran some sprint car stuff. I did it the same night I did late model, so it was a pretty tough deal. Keep it all going. I still work a full-time job, so I backed off the sprint car deal and just kept going late model racing.
I've got on our we've got a chat room here too, and I got Brian Tidball from VMS on here on the other side. You ran ARCA too?
I did run ARCA. I ran ARCA in 1997, maybe 98. We ran Daytona twice. We went to Michigan once, and we ran Charlotte, I think, 4 or 5 times. It was a brief stay, like for about 2-year period. We did it. We did them like 7 or 8 races in 2 years.
How now? Compare this to late models to the ARCA series. How much of a difference is that? You know, the horsepower is probably about the same, but how's it driving the 2 different venues there?
Well, the ARCA car is the same as a Winston Cup car. And the difference is they'll fool you. You don't realize you're going that fast, but right up until you crash. You know, pavement and with a dirt car, it's a lot more aggressive driving it. And the pavement car was fun. It really was. But the problem is it's a lot more how good your car is on the pavement side than it is. I mean, a dirt car, your car has to be good too. But you can make up for a little bit as a driver, or in the pavement side there, pretty much as good as your car is how good you're going to run.
Right. Brian's throwing out questions here left and right for me, so some of these are coming from him. How wild was it to win that World of Outlaw title when it just came down to the very last lap?
Yeah, it was tough. We had led it since I think June, and right there at the end, Josh got rolling. He got within I think 12 points the night before at Charlotte, and come down to the last race, and I really. Actually, no, he was within 2 points because I had to. If I finished ahead of him, we tied. If I finished behind him, we tied, and he would have won because he had 1 more races. So I had to beat him. And during that race, I got up through there. We both ran terrible. We both started back fairly far, and I got up there to him and passed him at one point, and then he passed me back, and I passed him again. Then he passed me back again. And then I sort of wore my tires out, and I was trying to finish, and on the last lap, blew his tire out, and I got by him before we got back to the start-finish line. So it was pretty cool because there's tons of fans there at Charlotte. That's a pretty neat deal at the World Finals there, and surprising most people we raced in front of the whole year.
And you didn't plan on running a full World of Outlaws that year, did you?
Well, I'm planning on it the same as this year, but I mean, we can only do what we can do. We're looking for some sponsorship for our team, and so we can, if we run good, we can stay out there. And if we have a string of bad luck, then we're going to end up not being on tour for the whole year. And that was the same deal we had last year, and it didn't look good. And then we got to running good, and we was able to keep ourselves out there.
And you've done very well. I can remember you coming to VMS here a couple of years ago. If I'm not mistaken, you left Maryland after qualifying and came down and looked at the track, and you actually set it on the pole that night, didn't you?
Yeah, that was late in the year one year. You're right. We qualified for I don't know if it was the Hub City 150 or Oktoberfest at Hagerstown, and then went down there, and I actually won there that night, and then went back to Hagerstown the next day and raced there.
Yeah, so, and I believe you won that night too, didn't you?
One night at Virginia Motor Speedway, I'm pretty sure. At Hagerstown, I think I was leading and broke. It was almost a good weekend.
Almost a good weekend, yeah. You almost got the trifecta there. Explain people about, you don't race as much as the sprint cars, but you guys still do a lot of traveling, don't you?
We race, our schedule takes us, we'll start in Florida at the beginning of the year, and then we'll go to, we'll end up as far west as we go is we're in Wyoming the last couple of years. We go to far north, as far we would go to North Dakota, and then the south we were scheduled in Texas last year, but we didn't. That deal got postponed. But we were in Mississippi, so that's all about there.
So you really do get around. Brian Tidball, and I'm going to let you go because I can tell you're probably not in the best of of shape. I feel for you. I've been through that surgery. People need to know out there that for if you want a national or a regional business to get involved, dirt late model is probably the best way to get your name out there. And Rick, I'm going to let you touch on this a little bit. But and somebody's saying you've raced all the way, like you said, Wyoming, Florida. I know you come to Virginia, Pennsylvania, Ohio. What does it take for people to get you? What's it going to take to sponsor Rick Eckert?
Well, I mean, there's many different ways that we can go about it. You can be you could be a major sponsor and have the whole car, or you can be a sponsor and just have one spot. We don't really have a cut and dry deal. I own the team, so we're open to any kind of sponsorship, really.
I know you got a few sponsors. Let's get them thanked here on the air. Let's get you out of here and get you feeling better. And I'll get you back on later this year when you're feeling a little bit better. And shoot, maybe if you make it down to Virginia, we'll get you live.
Cool. Yeah, I'll be there in a few weeks for the Commonwealth. I'm gonna make it to that race. I always enjoy going there. It's a great place. I like to think J&K Salvage is my primary sponsor. Eckert Trucking, got All-Star Performance, Richie Sandblasting, Hoosier Tire, Snowco Race Fuel. Everybody on the side of that car, every product sticker on there on the side of my car helps us get to the races. So, without any of them, it takes all of them to make it possible. We got to thank all of them guys.
Well, I appreciate you coming on with us. Go get feeling better. And you heard his sponsors. You need to support them. Thanks, Rick, for being on with us.
Okay, man. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one.
Sure.
Bye. He was hurting. You could tell. Okay, on to the next one. And you were just showing his pictures.
Shyrock, right?
Yep. I'm going to call Kelly.
Oh, I thought that was who you told me to pull up. That's who was on there.
No, that's who was next.
Ah.
You don't
Right now.
He's next.
You didn't say next. You said go to his Facebook for pics. That's it.
Please leave your message.
We could have done a commercial while we got him on air.
What are we going to push?
Hello?
Kelly.
Yes.
Hey, it's Matt from Let's Talk Racing.
Hey, Matt.
You ready to go on air?
Ready to go?
All right, man. We're on with Kelly Shyrock. Down in Texas right now, I believe, right?
Yeah, I think we're almost need to set up a mailbox down here. We've been down here for about 4 weeks.
And how much longer are you going to be down there?
We're going to race this weekend at Cowtown and Waco, and then go on home.
For all of our viewers that haven't known, 9-time U.S. MTS national champion. They're starting to call you the King, Kelly Shyrock, King of the Modifieds, right?
Well, we were fortunate enough to be able to win that first King of America race at Humboldt last year, so pretty cool deal to win an inaugural race like that, and then especially the pay being $15,000. That was pretty cool.
You don't see many modified races that pay out that good, though, do you?
No, not back in the day, man. We used to race for real big money, but the $15,000 is one of the bigger pay ones. There's a few $10,000s. Actually, the one up in Deer Creek is $20,000, so pretty big pay.
Yeah. Last year we had you on here. We were talking. You were close to 400 wins in a modified. Are we there yet?
Say that again. I'm sorry.
We were close to 400 wins.
Getting real close to 400 wins. I'd really like to accomplish that before we quit racing.
Hopefully that's not anytime soon, right?
Oh, I tell you, it's just what's going to dictate our traveling is just the expense. I mean, you just got to do really well on the road if you want to, if you don't have a, I told this to the other guy, you know how you make a small fortune in racing?
You spend a big fortune.
You start with a big one, yeah. So, if we can continue to be competitive out on the road, we'll continue to do it. But, in today's world, it's just getting to be in modified racing. It's a very expensive deal nowadays.
Now, I know this is school year and all that, but does the family go with you? How's the family feel about you doing all this racing?
Pretty good. My boy, he's got a job there in the central Iowa there, and it's pretty much just my wife and myself, and then we have a crew guy when we can round one up.
And the wife, I take it, she must enjoy racing just as much as you do.
Yeah, she likes racing, and that it's a must. I mean, you can't do this if you don't have the full support from your family. That's for sure.
You come from a racing background. This is, you're no stranger to this, and how has the family? I mean, I'm sure that have they dealt with you doing all this racing? You said she enjoys it. Is there any? Do you ever get any? No, I don't want you to do this kind of attitudes.
Well, I just tell her she takes care of all the bills, and she just tells me when I'm about out of money, and when I'm out of money, I guess I'll have to quit. So she pays all the bills, and hopefully we make enough money to make all that happen. My mom, my sisters, my partner, Eric Kirschbaum, it takes a lot of people to make this happen, that's for sure.
It sure does. We've got some pictures that we were kind of showing of your car. You got the blue car again this year?
Yeah, we kept the same colors. We weren't sure what to do, and it was getting time, so we ended up just doing the same colors, at least for this car.
Is this a new Skyrocket chassis, or is this a last year?
We have our last year's car, and we have our new car, so it's both cars are pretty close. We run 1-2 there at Texas Motor Speedway, so it was they're both pretty darn fast.
Good. And for people that don't know, Skyrocket chassis, and you've got a ton of cars out there. How's it feel competing against your own cars?
Well, it's a good deal. I mean, we as you sell a car, you want that guy to do good. So, I would hate to guess how many times we've run second to just a Skyrocket alone. I know the one year we run second over 20 times in one season. So, if you don't feel good about getting outrun by your own cars, you probably shouldn't be selling cars anymore.
That's true. What's the big plans for this year? Are we running for the national championship again? Have you set in stone what you're going to do yet this year?
Well, we've actually going to probably cut back on some of the nights of racing, just running up and down the road. You're just kind of trading dollars. If you don't do good, then you're going in the hole. So we're going to take a look and try to pick out 55 shows, 50 to 60 shows to run. And, the series now, he's kind of got it split up a little bit. They have a championship series races, and then he has the Casey's Cup qualifying races, so that you can qualify into the old deal, like in the past, the hunt, which is now called the Casey's Cup. So we're gonna chase as many as it makes sense, affordable, financially, I guess, and see what we can accomplish this year at that point.
Man, and that just stumped me. For some reason, I just went blank. Who's your biggest competitor? Blank. Who's your biggest competitor out there right now? Who's the guy that's always gunning after you, and who are you always gunning after?
Ryan Gustin, obviously last year had a really good year. There's just so many good cars. You got Ryan Gustin, and you got Rodney Sanders. You have Jason Hughes. You have Zach Vanderbeek. You have the Scott twins. Johnny Scott and Stormy Scott. You got, Phillips shows up and is very fast. And we're going to have Jeremy Payne. You got John Anderson. There's just to run in the top 5, man, you got to outrun 10 darn good cars. and probably 15 really good cars. And then if you want to try to pull a win off, it's just getting tougher and tougher. You just got to outrun a lot of good cars just to get in the top 5 nowadays.
And you just said it. I meant to, I'm sorry. And this is what I was going to say earlier, and I apologize for this, but you're only going to pick 60 races to run this year.
Yeah, normally we run around 100, and we're going to try to cut that back some, just to make it a little bit more feasible. The 100 nights a year. I mean, you're just wearing out a lot of stuff and burning up a lot of fuel, and we're going to try to just pick out, around 60 shows to race instead of the 100 shows that we normally do.
Okay, and now I'm in NASCAR country, Kelly, so hold on. For all these listeners out here, the number is 60. 60. It usually runs 100. Okay?
Run 100 shows, yes, sir.
Yes. it to a lot of NASCAR people, that's just amazing.
We'll run like in the month of June. He'll have a June swing. Normally we would race. We've raced before 24 out of 26 nights, 15 out of 17, 18 nights. I mean, just we'll run more in the month of like June sometimes, or depending on how the schedule is. We'll race almost what a guy would run a full season in about a month or half a season or so. I mean, you race 18, 20 nights in a row. That's a pretty good tear on your equipment, that's for sure.
That certainly is. Any chances of you going to do a little bit of IMCA this year?
No, we're really not set up for the IMCA stuff. I mean, the cars are really so far apart nowadays that the IMCA is just, it's not feasible for us at this point. If we ever really stop traveling, maybe we'll do an IMCA locally or something. But there's enough, of the cars that we race. As we get older, the IMCA, the biggest thing there is, they don't allow the quick change. And as you get older, that quick change becomes more and more popular throughout the night as you change gears instead of trying to change out that 9-inch gear. So.
Just say it like it is. We're getting old, Kelly. It's easier to work on the quick change.
Most definitely. I tell you, you got 6 bolts, 6 takeoff. If the listeners aren't familiar with that, it's just we can pull off 6 3/8 nuts and change our gear. We can change gears in a couple minutes. Where a 9-inch it takes 15 minutes, and then you're having to lift the chunk in and out of there that weighs 40, 50 pounds, and you got to pull your axles. And it's just as we get older, you're liking the little perks that make it a little bit easier for you. That's for sure.
Oh yeah. You've got a website. I want to get that out here right now because I'm actually looking at one of your die casts, and I tell you I want to get one. But you've got merchandising and marketing and all that.
Yeah, I tell you that all helps in just trying in the travels. The T-shirt sales and the die casts and the little bit of stuff that you can sell to the fans along the way. Just helps out in total bottom line.
Total bottom line, and that is I'm make sure I got this right, but it's SkyrocketChassis.com, right?
I believe that's it. Yes.
Okay. I take it you must not have much to do with it. I bet that's a wife thing.
That's actually the shop deal. I'm just not very. I just finally got me a smartphone that I'm not very good at. It's kind of interesting to be able to pull up things on the web, and we don't normally do that very often. But as technology rolls around, it's kind of nice to be able to pull things up.
It is, and I've actually got a smartphone, and I'm still learning how to use it.
Oh yes, for sure.
Sure.
Phone's smarter than he is.
Yeah, exactly. The phone is smarter than me. Listen, Kelly, I know you're down there and you're enjoying a little bit of time there, so good luck this weekend. Wish you the best in this year, and we're going to get you on here again soon.
Not a problem. Call anytime.
You got it, Kelly. Thanks for being on.
You bet. Thanks.
Right, bye.
Bye.
He's cutting down to 60 races. I wanted to express that because people don't know. It's just like he said, they'll race 18 nights in a row.
Back in the old...
how many other guys can say that? Well, back in the old days was like what they're doing now with the USMTS modifieds and all that. Okay, my next one. I haven't said anything yet. And I'm going to try to get him on the phone. Let's see if we can do this right.
Two.
I know.
It's a good thing mine does the same tone for everything else everybody figure out. Dial
What?
You have reached.
Dial 1 first.
Yeah, I thought I did.
Which line you on?
2.
Gotta be smarter than a standard phone too.
Hope I got the right one. Yeah, it is.
So I do it over there, put him on hold, and then let him pick up here. He wants to play dial-o-matic.
Well, you can do it.
Hello?
Doug?
Yeah.
Hey, it's Matt. Are you ready to go on the air?
Yeah.
All right. Hold on.
Tell him he's live first in case he says
You are live right as we speak, but I want to introduce you the right way, and I'm going to read these off. And let's see, this man that we're going to talk to right now,
Well, what's his name?
I'm getting to that.
Oh, okay.
107 World of Outlaw wins. Okay, this is via Knoxville Nationals Sprint Car Hall of Fame. 481 lifetime wins, 37 All-Star wins, 3 USAC wins. He's had 17 different car owners. He's won in 29 states at 105 different tracks. Dare anybody to try to beat this. He's in the Sprint Car Hall of Fame. We have the Wolf, Doug Wolfgang, on with us. How you doing tonight, Doug?
Yeah, very good. Thanks for having me.
Nice big build-up, too, I tell you.
Man, I tell you what, and we're going to get right to it. Hall of Fame, 2003, and the class that you went in with, man, I mean, Sammy Sessions, Al Hamilton, Bud Carson, and Ron Schumann. That's a pretty big class to be inducted with.
You make me sound good. I didn't know I was that good. You know more about me than I do.
Tell us a little bit about your how you got started in sprint car, and then I'm going to lead into another question with that, but how'd you get into this?
Racing?
Yeah.
How'd I get into racing? My dad used to take me to the local dirt track in the 50s and the early 60s here in Sioux Falls, which were modified stock cars. And at the time, I played sports, but at that time, junior high sports were at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and he could never come and watch me because he worked. And I guess I was more interested in him watching because I didn't play sports in high school because he couldn't come and watch me, but he did take me to the races. So when I bought a race car or built my first race car, he went with me all the time, and it was a lot of fun. But I didn't get in it to be a pro. I mean, I just got in it because it was something to do that I liked. I hadn't a clue that there was an I knew there was an Indianapolis because I heard it on the Memorial Day broadcast on the radio in those days, 1966, 7, 8, and maybe a little earlier at our picnics on Memorial Day. But I hadn't even heard of Richard Petty yet. I didn't know there was a Daytona 500. And that's before the days of the internet, before the days of cell phones, before the days of convenience stores with magazine racks on. I hadn't seen a race T-shirt except for an STP T-shirt. I hadn't even seen a race T-shirt. So it was a different time and a different era. And I just started racing when I was, out of high school, and one thing led to another, and I got into a sprint car, and I guess
I guess they'll find you if you're kind of good, and I must have been kind of good once in a while.
Once in a while, we have, and we just had Brian Stickel from Knoxville Raceway on there. You've won the Nationals 5 times?
Yeah,
And you are the second. Steve Kinser's the only one that's won more than you have.
Yeah, but I think Donnie Schatz has won 5 also, so he has a chance. He's only 32 or 3 years old, so he has. Well, he'll undoubtedly beat me, but I wasn't there to set records. I mean, truthfully, the reason I went to Knoxville was once I got into a modified car and realized that as a 5 feet 8-inch guy that weighed 160 pounds, I probably wasn't going to play pro football. I couldn't jump to the moon, so I wasn't in. I wasn't going to be in the NBA. My butt wasn't big enough to hit home runs. So my chance of being a pro sports star was to win Indianapolis. So first, and I had seen several IMCA sprint car races at the state fairs. Here, South Dakota State Fair and Nebraska State Fair and stuff, because my dad would take me. So I thought, boy, if I could win me a sprint car race. Because I read that's kind of was their minor leagues for scouting talent at the time in the 60s. Of course, when I got going, it was in the 70s, and rear engine cars were already there. But hell, I already had my mind set that if I could win a big sprint car race, I could get to Indianapolis. So for me, the biggest sprint car race that I knew about was the Knoxville Nationals, and it was only 5.5 hours from my house. So all I had to do was go down there and win it. And I figured the next year Roger Penske would hire me, and by the third year I'd probably win Indianapolis 500. Well, it ain't that easy, and things change. But like I said, when I first went to Knoxville, I didn't go down there to win 5 races. I went down there to win 1. Thought I'd get an Indy car to drive.
But that one win led to a lot. It might not have led you to Indy, but it led you to a lot of good rides too, didn't it?
Yeah, it probably actually, in retrospect, by the time I won that one race, which was 1977, I kind of already realized that my chances to go to Indianapolis weren't too good. And I didn't really know where I was going, but all of a sudden, these races started to pay, instead of $500 and $600 to win, they went to, a couple thousand, and then a $10,000 to win, then a $20,000, then $50,000, and it didn't seem like it took very long at all. And if you were all right at driving and could keep in a car and stay out there and go to plenty of races, you could make a pretty good living, and I lucked out to do that.
And you did pretty good. I think one of the most famous rides you had was Bob Weichert's Beef Packers car, and you set a precedent that everybody's got to kind of shoot for now. You won 54 in 1 year, didn't you?
Yeah, but I think Steve Kinser won that many one time, 55 races or whatever he won. So almost everything that I've done, Steve has done better 1 year. I mean, and that ain't lamenting. I admire Steve. Me and Steve still talk. He's one of my pals, and we grew up to, me and Sammy and Steve are all the same age. But I like Sammy fine. I still root for him and Steve more than anybody else at the tracks. But when we raced, I just got to be buddies with Steve more. And we went to Australia early in our career together, about 1979 or 80, the winter of one of them two. And he babysitted my kids my older daughters before he even had kids. And it was. I just like him. He's a great kid, a great family guy, a great husband to his wife, and a great dad to his kids, I think.
And he is. He's one of the great guys, and you and Steve, and man, we could go down with who you've raced with over the years, and I mean, pretty much anybody that's ever jumped into a sprint car in the 70s and 80s, when you showed up, they were looking for second place.
Well, in those days, it was pretty much of a hotbed. The sprint car racing was really popular at the time. I think more so than even now. Nothing against it now. My son's starting to race a little bit, and Steve's son, and Sammy's, and several second generation guys. But it was really seemed hot at the time. It seemed like the fans loved it, and it was going good. And we went to a lot of races, over 100 every year. And after a while, we got we had myself and several other guys raced over 1,000 times, and you get to be pretty good at something when you try it that often. And they were all good. All Steve and Sammy and several other guys. So it was a lot of fun. I feel proud to have been the age to come along at that time, and to have been diligent or dumb enough, or whatever the word is, to hang in there. And I enjoyed it. I wouldn't have. I got injured and got hurt, but I wouldn't have enjoyed. I wouldn't change nothing for the world. I wouldn't have changed my life for anything. It was a lot of fun.
A friend of mine just sent me a deal and wants me to ask you a question, but describe to our viewers, in the best possible scenario that you can, what is it like to sit in a 410 cubic inch winged sprint car?
Well, that's kind of a loaded question, because it wouldn't matter who you were, including Tony Stewart or Steve Kinzer or Sammy or any brave 17-year-old boy. You just don't get into one of them and cut a fat hog in the ass the first time. It just doesn't happen. There's a learning curve there. Everything happens so quickly, and so it's just a little different than any other type of car you would drive. Midgets don't have the power. Silver Crown cars are a little longer and heavier. They feel bulkier. Late models are quite a bit heavier, even with big engines in them. Dirt modifieds are heavier, even with 500 cubic inch. There's nothing like that. Not that it's good or bad. It's just not. It's different than most anything you can drive. And so it takes a minute or two to get accustomed to that. But once you start in something and get used to the racing, and then ease into that, it's not a big deal. For guys like that race those things, it's no different than driving down the freeway. Trust me, there's several thousand guys who can race sprint cars, so it's not the end of the world. It isn't that big a deal. Said and done, they're very, very violent. They can. Stuff happens quickly, very quickly, so fast you can't even remember. One moment you're out there seemingly having the time of your life, and the next minute you'll wake up 2 weeks later in a hospital. So, they can knock the heck out of you quickly.
And that's another thing I want to touch on, because, we were talking the other day about this, and you really helped change racing I think all over by getting a lot more safety equipment out there, and I think you really brought it to the attention. You want to kind of explain that process there?
I got hurt in the spring of 1992, and I got burnt, which was a huge focus. But before I even got burnt the same day, before I sat there and caught fire and got burnt, I already broke my neck, my sternum, my pelvis, bones in my legs, several fingers and toes, and so it was a violent crash. And then while I sat in the car, knocked unconscious, it caught fire and they couldn't get me out, and it burnt me on about 58% of my body, mostly the lower half, and and had severe burns too. So it just happened, And as a race driver, you understand. Well, as a football player, you understand when you're a running back, you're going to get a knee blowed out sooner or later. It's just the way it is. You're going to get planted. You're going to have knee trouble. And as a race driver, if you race long enough, you're going to get dinged sometime along the line. Something's going to happen.
It's not if, it's when.
Yeah, it's not a matter of if, it's only when.
Yeah.
To some extent. A lot of guys don't get hurt very bad. And some guys get hurt worse than what you think they could have, and it doesn't seem like it even happened to them because not long afterwards they're back in the car again. But regardless, that's what happened, and at the time, it was 1992, there wasn't a lot of safety. There was a lot of safety equipment. I mean, I had full face helmet and 2-3-layer uniform and underwear on. It was a cold day, early April, and I had two pairs of stockings on, long underwear, double layer uniform, a lot of stuff on. But I didn't have full containment seats and a lot of different things. And it's just the way it was. It's just the way it was. And the worst thing is the track at the time wasn't set up to do anything. They weren't trained in any kind of rescue maneuver at all. They had little to no fire equipment there, and little to none training with any of the people that were there, minus the EMTs. But the EMTs are not there to save your life. They are there to take your vitals and take you to a hospital. They don't fight fires. They don't cut roll cages off. They don't extract you. And those people that were there to do that were not trained. And nothing against them people. They were there to help you, but they weren't trained in catastrophic type events. And I tried to get a few of the bigger sprint car promoters together to try to make it get like a NHRA safety safari to travel with the World of Outlaws and try to figure out a way that we could do that and get it funded and get it happening. And they weren't at all interested in talking to me, and I understand why, because they're in business like I was as a race driver. Their business is but they're on the other end of the business. They don't really care about the drivers. I mean, they do. That sounds rude, but I mean, it is not, it is their business to sell tickets to the grandstand, pay money to the racers. So the higher they can sell tickets to the grandstand people, and the least amount they pay back to the racers means more in their pocket. And I understand that. They don't want to make any more expenses than they have to. So it didn't get anywhere, and one thing led to another, and in my own mind, my son was born when I was in the hospital in Kansas City, and he's now 19. Well, he'll be 20 in May, but 19 now. That's how long ago it's been. And one of the very first words he could say was race car, because he grew up in a race family and had all the little Matchbox model cars and, Jeff Gordon's car and all the sprint cars and all that. Well, he could say race car, and I just got to thinking that as a father, it is my duty to stand up for his right. It was obvious I wasn't gonna be top flight anymore. And I did come back and try to race, but at the time I considered it, I still didn't even know if I would ever be able to come back. And so for me to leave the sport and not try to make it for nobody else but my son, who may have been, and at the time I didn't know, and I still don't know for that matter, he may have been born with better genes than myself. Maybe he's maybe he becomes a race driver. As it is now, he is racing a little bit. For me to leave the sport the way that it was didn't seem like the right thing for me to do. So I just thought it was up to me to stand up, if for nobody else, my son, later on. And I tried to make it better. I don't think that I did. I don't think it has become as good as it could or should be, but I think I got, if nothing else, I made a lot of people mad and got them thinking about it. Because I know they got mad at first. At least they thought about it and and at least made an attempt to think that maybe it is right. Maybe we ought to do something about it. So I'm proud of that.
I know this is probably, but when you go to the races now, and you said you go with your son Robbie, and we'll touch on that here in a second, do you look for them fire trucks? Do you look for them safety personnel now? Do you see them a lot more when you go?
Well, we don't travel. He's going to college here. He's in his second year of college, and we don't travel around that much. But for the tracks we go to, they have, which is primarily Knoxville Raceway on Saturday nights, and Houston Speedway here in Sioux Falls on Sunday nights, because that's where he runs primarily, and some of the local other tracks in this area. Primarily, those two tracks have outstanding fire protection and EMT services right at the track. But I'm not positive that all the tracks do. I would say that still it's a crapshoot. I think and there is in defense of the tracks and sanctioning bodies. I understand what they're up against. It's hard to make an absolute rule. Because if you make a rule on some things, that leaves you open for litigation, because no matter what happens, if you make a rule that a guy has to use a Hans device, well, what's going to happen if you crash and break your neck because the Hans device got stuck up underneath your helmet and broke your neck? I mean, it leaves them open for litigation later on. You told us we had to use a Hans device, and my son is now dead because of that. And so if they only put in those things that you should, in the rulings, that everything is highly suggested that you use, which doesn't necessarily mean that a track has to have everything that they should have, that it doesn't leave them open so much to further litigation, and consequently, when something does happen, it's like everybody turns their back. I think it's wrong, but I understand, some of the ramifications on why they do those type of things.
And we were talking about that the other day, and I thought about that, and I see your point very clearly on that. Not that it shouldn't be required, but it should be strongly recommended that you wear that safety equipment.
Yeah, and like I said, they have a hard time. There's a fine line there. People, when I sued the track and the World of Outlaws, because that's basically what I did. There's a fine line. Most people believe I'm trying to ruin racing, because I'm gonna suck the sport for $5 or $10 million in suing them, and it's going to just make it so hard for anybody to have any insurance. And, like our medical insurances, that's what has caused our medical insurance. One reason why our medical insurances are so high is the doctors have to have insurances for themselves to protect them against litigation from patients and stuff when things go wrong, and things do go wrong, and that's life, and racing is that way too. And so I understand why people thought I was a butthead, but on the other hand, I had to do what I had to do. So you are what you are, and I am what I am. So I did it.
And like I said, and we've talked about it, and I think everybody realizes now what happened with that. I got posted a question here, and I'm going to try to get it in real quick. What do you think is going to save, and believe me, for people that have seen sprint cars, they absolutely, I mean, they fall in love with it the first time they see them. But what's going to help keep the cost of these sprinters down? I mean, these 410s and these 360s, you think they're getting a little out of hand? What do you think we can do to keep that cost down?
Well, first of all, did you ask me if I think they're getting a little out of hand?
Well,
they're not getting a little out of hand. They are totally out of hand. They are very extremely expensive. They are, but that's life. I mean, I'm not a, when they invented basketball in 1890s or something, or whenever it was, they had a peach crate nailed onto a wall or something, and they shot two-handed set shots flat-footed. Well, I don't know if the same people who designed that sport watched the NBA All-Star game a couple weeks ago, but I didn't see no set shots, two-handed set shots, flat-footed from 5 foot away. You know what I mean? Everything evolves. It's just the way that it is. I'm sure that the guys who built the Indianapolis Motor Speedway in the early 1900s or whatever it was never envisioned the cars being rear-engine, computer-controlled, turbocharged, 220-mile-an-hour vehicles, and I'm sure that Bill France Sr. never envisioned NASCAR to have limits on, basically 100 cubic inches less than what they ran in the 70s, because they had 440s and stuff like that. Well, now the motors are 350s, and they still run 200 miles an hour. And they did it with stock cars, and if those things are stock cars nowadays, they haven't seen, we haven't even seen a stock car for several years. Those are real race cars, all hand-built. There's nothing stock about them.
And sprint cars really have not changed that much, and that brought up an interesting point. They haven't changed that much. I mean, the
cars haven't changed much, and they still, if you see a picture of some of the cars in the 50s and the 60s, they're not a heck of a lot different, other than they got roll hoops on them, and they didn't have any roll hoops at the time.
Yeah.
Now a lot of them have, most of them run wings, and they never had wings at that time. But those cars, basically had, 270 Offies or 265 V8 Chevys, and they probably had, at the very most, 350 horsepower on 6-7-inch wide wheels and tires at the time. And now we got, they have 16, 7, 18-inch wide tires and wheels and 900 horsepower and downforce from the wings. These things are unbelievable. The cars don't look much different from the grandstand. I mean, really, you can take a picture of a 1960 model car, and it's not much different. But those 60 model cars ran around Knoxville in, 25 seconds, and they're running around there in 14 now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if I get Doc to bring up the picture, you got a question?
No, it's just one about Claimer motors.
Yeah, Tommy here, my partner brought up. What would you? Well, that's kind of hard to do, Claimer motors, because you're running alcohol and injection, and that'd be kind of tough. You brought up something. Let's talk about this great. I got the chance to go to Knoxville Sprint Car Hall of Fame, and let's talk about this great big wing that was in there. Do you want to tell us a little bit about this?
I'm not sure I know what's in. You mean a wing I ran?
Yeah.
Oh, that was with Bob Trostle's car, I think. Bice-Script number 20?
Yep.
Okay. Well, we did, when they started coming up with those wings, and they were all, for people who don't understand wings, all they are is like an airplane wing tipped upside down. Instead of the airplane taking off, lifting, it pushes, the faster you go, the more push down there is on the tires. And so they first built these things and put them up on top of the roll cage, and I don't know, they were probably 3 foot, 4 foot square. Well, it don't take a genius to know that the drier the track is, the more downforce you can make, the faster you're going to go without slipping a tire, you'll beat them. Well, we went to a few afternoon races and said, to heck with it, let's just build something bigger. So we built one that's, I don't know, I think it was 7 foot wide and 7 foot long. And it just was gigantic, but we won when we put it on. We won the first 10,000 win outlaw race, I believe, at Champaign, Illinois. And I think the first time we put that on, we ran Tulsa, which was a 5/8 mile in the afternoon, and it was in the spring, and it was real dusty and slick, and we just drove away. I mean, it was amazing at that time. Of course, and nowadays, that wing probably weighed, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 pounds, which is unbelievable, The wings nowadays are 5 foot square and only weigh, I don't know what they weigh, but it probably half that or less. So that was a bob weight, if nothing else, on that car, but it definitely pushed the car down. It was so wide you could barely pass people right wheel to wheel because it would scrub the side panels off.
Yeah, I got the honor of seeing that, and I was like, oh, I remember that.
Yeah.
They ended up putting a wing rule in not too long after that, didn't they?
Yeah, they usually when in those days, everybody that, not just me, but if you came up with something that was better, and of course you didn't know if it was going to be better, we were changing stuff all the time, hoping to get better, but usually as soon as you got better, and it was day and night better, they would outlaw it right away, or put a restriction on it or something. You went on to the next thing, and you tried this and tried that. It was a lot of fun in those days. Nowadays it has evolved into where they have rules. The rule book's pretty thick. In them days there was no rules. You did what you how they used to say that, you run what you brung.
And hope you brought enough.
Yeah, and hope you brought enough, yeah.
Listen, we're starting to run out of time here, Doug, and I guess I'm going to have to just devote 1 hour with you. But I want to touch with you about your book. You got a book out. It's been out for a few years called Lone Wolf. Let's talk a little bit about that, and where can people get it?
You can get it, anybody who knows, you can email Dave Argerbright. He's the author, or you can call my shop and get it from me. We have it at my shop. And it's just a book about me. Dave's a heck of an auto racing writer, and I was honored that he asked me to do a book on me. He thought my story was worth talking about, and it covers my life without being too boring. There's not hardly any stats in it at all. If you're a statistician type of guy or girl, you won't enjoy the book. It's mostly about my life and what got me into racing and where we've gone, where we came from. How many going to the races. It's just a story about me, and it doesn't say I won 23 mains this year and 30, and list all. It's not into that. It's a very good book. I believe, Dave, when it was released in 2007 or 8, I believe in the group of guys that are in the media, what do they call them? The American Auto Racing Writers and Broadcasters.
Yep.
I think he won the Academy Award or whatever they call it that year for the best book published that season for that book, and I'm proud to have done done this book with him because he did an outstanding job, I believe. Yeah.
Well, you're going to be hearing from me in the next couple of days because now that I know I can get one from you, I'm gonna call and get one from you.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm serious. I'm going to get you on here one night when you and I are just going to sit down and have a bench racing session for a whole hour, and I think we could do it, and it would be very interesting. But Doug, I want to thank you for coming on. And like I said, we're going to get you back on here soon.
Well, my honor. Thanks for calling me.
Thank you, and you'll be hearing from me soon. I'm serious. I'm going to call and get a book.
Yeah, no sweat. I'll see you.
All right. Thanks, Doug.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
He didn't tell you about the one question over there that was on there.
I did. I asked it. Yeah, no, am I going to let Tommy talk tonight? Do you want to introduce this next guy?
No, you're doing fine.
Am I doing fine?
You're rattling just well.
I'm doing just well. Okay. I hope I can get him.
If you can hit the right
If
button.
I can hit the right buttons, this is becoming a challenge here.
Right phone line this time?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You gotta be smarter than the phone. And it's not even a smartphone.
Your call has been forwarded to an automatic voice message.
Is that the one you
He told me to do that. Okay, I hate these phones.
Line 1.
Yep. Brad.
Yeah.
Hey, this is Matt. Are we okay on this line?
Yep, we're good.
Okay. We're running really late. Our prior guest, and you know who it was, we really got going.
Okay.
And we are live right now. So
all right.
I have on the line, and I put it out a little bit earlier. I could not find any stats on you, and I'll talk to you about that in a second.
All right.
Hall of Famer, Brad Doty. If you want to know who this guy is, if you ever watch a sprint car on Speed, you were down in Charlotte for the last one this year, and you've been on every one of them, haven't you?
Yeah, we do about five shows a year on Speed, the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Racing, and I'm the color analyst. And our last one was the World Finals in November of last year, and we're hoping, I think, May, the Memorial Day weekend back in Charlotte, the dirt track at Charlotte. Hopefully we'll be live again.
Sounds like it will. Brad Doty, by the way, and like I said, Sprint Car Hall of Famer. You were one of the young guys. You were kind of the Jeff Gordon of sprint cars back in the day. Tell us how you got involved in it.
Well, I was grew up in Ohio, and a good friend of mine, Ed Hodenshield, which any of the sprint car fans out there know who Jack Hodenshield is. Ed's his older brother. He started racing when he was 16 here locally in Ohio. His dad was very well known in the area and one of the local heroes. And so Ed started, and that got me really interested. I was going watching Ed race, and I'd liked sprint cars. They came to Wayne County. Some of the Pennsylvania cars would come into Wayne County Speedway here in Ohio, and of course Rick Ferkel's from Ohio. So I've seen a lot of sprint car races, and it wasn't really until Ed started racing that I thought it was maybe a realistic goal that I could drive one of these things too, and that's kind of how it all started. I was 15, and my first race I was 15 years old. It was a modified, basically a rough-built sprint car, and I turned 16 before the next weekend. So I started pretty young. Didn't race for a few years after that. Worked my way up through. Was World of Outlaws Rookie of the Year in 1982. In 1987, I finished second in the national championship. Steve Kinzer, and then 1988 I had an accident where I was paralyzed at Eldora Speedway, and then a few years after that, fortunately, the TV came along, and back in those days it was TNN, and I got involved as a color commentator.
I'm gonna step back into into your past just a little bit here. Isn't there a story that you were meeting the Houdenchilds down on the corner, and you were told that if you didn't get your hair cut?
Yeah. But I grew up on a farm, and we moved. We were neighbors, the Houdenchilds, when we were really young, and my parents bought a farm, and it was right on the way to Wayne County Speedway. And Jack's and Ed's dad, they'd come by and they'd pick me up and we'd go to the races. And John Hodenshield told me that he wasn't going to pick me up the next week if I didn't get a haircut. And I'd really never heard of such a thing. I thought he was joking. And so the next week I'm standing out by the mailbox and I didn't get a haircut, and they slowed down. He saw that I didn't get a haircut, and he drove on past. And that's the truth.
That's the truth.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I haven't had a chance to do it, but I've got a lot of open wheels, and I believe that was in an open wheel, that story.
Yeah, we talk about it in the book, too. My book's Still Wide Open. It's an autobiography. We talk about it in there as well.
And we're gonna talk about that because you've done something really special with that book. But I wanted to talk to you a little bit about, and I'll tell you what, I asked Doug this, and I really didn't get the answer I was kind of looking for. I want you to explain what it is to drive, what it's like to drive a winged sprint car. And I know you've done some non-wing too, but I really am looking for somebody, the best way to explain it.
Oh, it's really hard to put into words. It's a lot of times I've compared anybody that's ridden a motocross style motorcycle, the weight to horsepower ratio of a good fast dirt bike, to me is or even what you call a crotch rocket, of today, the weight to horsepower. To me, that's what a sprint car is all about. I mean, the only way that it's World of Outlaws 1375 with the driver, so you're looking at about a 1,200 pound race car with 900 horsepower, and it's pretty incredible, horsepower to weight ratio, and they're a lot of fun. I mean, they'll wheelie. If you're not careful, you can stand them up on the rear bumper, and you have to sometimes feather with the throttle to keep the front wheels on the ground. And they, as you know, they're open wheel cars, so if they start flipping, they can flip pretty violently. But that's part of the game.
And flip they do. I mean, there's not a race I don't think that at least somebody at least rolls over once.
You hope not, but yeah, it can happen at any time. Like I said, open wheel race cars, and at the speeds they're traveling, it doesn't take much contact to send the car up over another wheel. But they've come a long way as far as safety. The seats and things have gotten a lot safer throughout the years. Not that it's going to be completely safe, and not saying that there aren't people that still get hurt and or killed today, unfortunately. But everybody's working really hard to keep it as safe as they can.
Tell us a little bit about your accident for people that don't know. You're at Eldora. If I remember correctly, it was Rossburg, right?
Yeah, Rossburg, Ohio, at Eldora Speedway. And it was the Kings Royal. That time, it still pays $50,000 to win, but back when it started back in, I think, 84, somewhere in there, 1984 was the first one, and, $5,000 to win was a huge paying race. And Eldora started paying $50,000 to win. And so a lot of money on the line, and it was the first lap of the feature of 1988. I guess it came off my best year ever in sprint car racing. Second in the national championship to Steve Kinzer, who's now a 20-time World of Outlaws champion. And won 4 races. He won 47, I believe, that year, but I made more money and ran a lot of seconds to him and had a great year. And then unfortunately, kind of over the winter, that team fell apart. I ran it for 2 races at the start of the season, and the season literally went downhill from there. I bounced around to several different teams and ended up getting in an accident the very first lap of the Kings Royal. Some cars in front of me got crossed up, and I ran up over a wheel, started flipping, and what we call routine flips in sprint cars, and 90% of the time you walk away from it. But in this instance, I got hit by another car as I was flipping through the air. My roll cage was hanging down. The car was upside down in midair, and another car came in and stuck the front of the race car into the cockpit and tried to rip me out of the car, basically tore the back of the roll cage off, and it broke my back. And I've been paralyzed ever since. But, I still try to stay active in the sport, still enjoy the sport, have no animosity toward anyone or anything. And the sport, all in all, it's been pretty good to me.
And you've been very good with the sport, and a lot of people that see you up in that booth probably don't realize that, what you have been through, and that you've been driving these cars for quite some time, like we were just talking about. You had a very good career, and you traveled all over too, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I never raced in Australia, but I did travel all over the country, and hit a lot of states. Probably the most success I had was in California. A lot of the tracks out there, I don't know why, just suit my style, and won my biggest race, Pacific Coast Nationals at Ascot near Los Angeles in 1986, and so it was really good. But yeah, I ran all over the country, but since my accident, I've been to Australia 3 times and done some TV down there for the sprint car racing down there, and I literally flew down there by myself and rented a car, and just I try to be as independent as I can. But like I said, a lot of times people that are maybe new to the sport and just see me on TV, and then just, maybe see me at the track and didn't realize that I was in a wheelchair. It surprises people sometimes.
It really does, and I remember seeing you the first time. I tell you what, I'm going to ask you this, because I called a friend of mine and I said, man, I'm honored I got Brad Doty on the show with me tonight. And the first thing they said is, well, how is Brad doing? So, I thought that kind of funny, but I was like, well, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I don't know, health-wise, I've been doing really well. I'm getting older, like the rest of some of us. I'll turn 55 in July, and so I've spent almost half my life in this. I was 31 when I got hurt, so when I look at it that way, it's like, holy cow, But all in all, I'm doing well, and I try to take care of myself and stay as active as I can. Today I was out raking my yard. I've got an electric scooter that I can ride around in the yard, and I was out raking my yard and my push mower from it. Just try to stay as active as I can for somebody, basically in a wheelchair.
And the way I understand it, you do very well with it. Let's get on the book here now, because I don't know how much time I got with you, but you're the last guest on here, so we got as much time as you want.
Okay.
You and Dave.
We said that it went for 3 hours.
Oh, my producer's back there yelling at me.
Yeah, he probably wants to go home.
I'm usually the one that wants to go home. Tonight, it's wide open.
Yep.
Dave Argerbright and you sat down and tell us a little story about writing this book.
Well, the first book we did, 1999, and it's titled Still Wide Open. And it was Dave Argerbright, who at that time, he still is an excellent writer for a lot of racing papers, or the ones that are left, but a lot of websites now and a lot of different writings. He approached me. This was the first book he had ever done, and it turned out I'm really, really proud of it. So we did that in 1999, and 2 or 3 years, basically it was sold out, and it got to where people were paying $200 and $300 on the internet for a copy of the book. And the last few years we've had a lot of requests, so Dave and I discussed it and decided to do a reprint, and it's basically the same book. We've just added 3 new chapters from what's going on in my life since 1999 when we did the original book, and what's going on with the World of Outlaws, the new ownership, some of the race teams that are out there today, some of the drivers, in my opinion, and some of the things that within the sport like that, and just what's been going on. Got a new cover. We have a standard edition that's basically, like I said, it's the same thing we had, only it's 3 new chapters. And then we've got a collector's edition, black leather-bound, gold leaf embossed. It's 500 of those. They're limited to 500, stamped and numbered. And it has 47 extra photos that neither the original or the standard edition that we just came out with has. It's got a whole extra photo section. So, and they're stamped and numbered. And a lot of the collectors, are eating those things up. But standard edition, we sold it for $30 in 1999, and it's still $30 today for the standard edition. The black leather-bound collector's edition, it's a little pricey at $50, but anybody that's interested, they can go to daveargerbright.com, or if you got a computer, just Google Still Wide Open. The title of the book is Still Wide Open, and my name will pop up, Dave Argerbright's will pop up, tell you where to get it. and I'm really proud of it. And Dave has since done Doug Wolfgang and Jack Hewitt and Chris Economaki and Bill Smith from Speedway Motors and several books since then. And I still like to tease him that I broke him in and he learned how to do a book on my first one.
And the way I understand, and I have not read it, we talked about this earlier, I am getting one. I'll figure out a way. But it was a very good job.
Yeah,
Tell them to send you one.
I'm really proud of, like I said, Dave. You know, even there's a lot of things you always, no matter how many books you do, or I do a monthly column for Sprint Car Midget magazine, and I agonize over a subject month to month, and then when I start the column, I write and rewrite and write till the deadline, you know, and then when it comes out in the magazine, I think, gosh, I should have said this, I should have said that, you know, and that's, I'm sure Dave kind of feels that way about the original book too. There's some things we maybe could have done differently, not necessarily better, but differently. But all in all, you know, very, very proud of it.
You said it earlier, no regrets, no nothing. And you're still keeping your pulse on the sprint cars. Where do you see sprint car? Where do you see it going?
Well, unfortunately, the economy has hurt a lot of racing in general, and I think I also co-promote. You asked what I also co-promote a World of Outlaws race in Lima, Ohio, Lima Land Motorsports Park, and that's in July 11th. But my point to bring that up is our crowd. We had the biggest crowd we ever had. I've been directly involved with the race since 2005, and we moved it to the Lima Land Motorsports Park in 2006, and it's grown every year, it seems like. And last year we had the biggest crowd we've had, and with the economy and gas prices high last summer. And, you know, it's a little scary that, you know, what they're talking, the prices of gas could be this summer. As a race promoter, it's always a fear that if the weather's not absolutely perfect, people aren't going to spend $4 for gas, a gallon of gas, and take a chance of getting rained out. So that's the biggest fear. But I think the sport's in good shape. Having said all that, I think it seems like now that some are concerned, say the World of Outlaws Sprint Car Series, they've lost some teams. Drivers have split up with car owners and different things have happened. But that may, and some are worried that they may only be down to 8 or 10 or 12 cars. Well, early years of the World of Outlaws, there were only 5 or 6 of us that ran every show, and it not only survived, but it thrived. So I'm not worried that some could argue that with only, say, 8 or 10 full-time travelers, it opens the doors for more local teams to show up, knowing that they may have a chance of making the main event now. And so I'm, as I like to say a lot of times, I just did an interview again the other day, that I'm a glass is half full kind of guy, I guess, and that's the way I look at things and try to be optimistic. And I really feel that, barring any major catastrophe, that I think everything's going to be okay this year.
I think so too. And the one thing about sprint cars is that I think no matter what, everybody will go see a sprint car race.
Well, they will. I mean, but you know, you're down there in late model country, and boy, there's late models everywhere. I mean, there's more late models, you know, probably than sprint cars, especially 410 sprint cars. Now, you throw in all the different types of sprint cars, maybe it's more equal. But you know, the late model racing I've seen, and the crowds, you know, we do that live, the World Finals in Charlotte, where we have the World of Outlaws late models. They're dirt modifieds, the Northeast dirt modifieds. Of course, the World of Outlaws sprint cars, and the crowds have been standing room only, and late models, you know, gosh, there's 6 or 7 heats, and plenty of them there, you know, so they're doing okay too.
Yeah. Well, when you said late models, I'm actually down here in asphalt late models.
Okay.
We still got some dirt up here. Let's talk on that too. Brad Doty Classic, July 11th, Lima, Ohio, Lima Land Speedway, right?
Lima Land Motorsports Park.
Motorsports Park. You kind of got into a co-promoter. How does Brad Doty like doing that?
Well, it's a little odd, I have to admit, promoting a race that has my name. And how that happened was after my accident that we just spoke of. There were a lot of benefits done for my family and I. My wife was about 8.5 months pregnant with our 3rd child when I got hurt. So, you know, our life was literally flipped upside down, and a lot of good people around the country and promoters and race fans, and took a lot of collections for us and bailed us out at a time when we really needed it. And Attica Raceway Park, there was another series started called United Sprint Association that take on the World of Outlaws. It was a competition, and that's the sore subject, still to this day for the World of Outlaws people, I think. But anyway, they put a race together at Attica Raceway Park and called it the Brad Doty Benefit Race. And USA, that sanction folded after a year, but the people at Attica asked me if, they actually called me and wanted to know if I would mind, is the way they worded it, if they named that race the Brad Doty Classic in honor of my career and just to honor me and my career. And I said, yeah, I was flattered that they would even offer. So the name, it was the Brad Doty Classic, and it went on for years and years and years at Attica, and I had no direct connection with the event. And in 2005, the promoters at Attica changed hands, and at that time, the promoter asked if I wanted to be a partner in the race, and we got the World of Outlaws to sanction it for the very first time, and that was in 2005 at Attica. And it was actually aired on the Outdoor Channel. I was also working TV for the Outdoor Channel in those days, and it was on TV. We got the World of Outlaws to sanction it, and then after that season, the Attica Fair Board took the track back from that person, and we didn't know if it was going to open back up. Try to make a long story short here. Again, this is all in my book on the latest chapters, but I had a chance to move it. Gene Franker, who was at Attica for years, was the promoter, was hired at Lima Land Motorsports Park to do the racetrack and get the race surface in shape. And he asked me if I would be interested in moving it to Lima Land Motorsports Park, and went down and met with those people. And that track is actually owned by the University of Northwestern Ohio.
Really?
Oh, yeah. So it's owned by the college there in Lima. They've got one of the largest high-performance motorsports classes in the world, and they actually use the racetrack as part of the schooling. And UNOH sponsors Austin and Ty Dillon in their modifieds, and UNOH is the acronym for the school. Ohio University of Northwestern Ohio is actually the school. So, again, you said we had some time, so I'm explaining the whole thing, but just having the school being part of the race has been a huge plus, and having the event there, it's grown every year. I've been an equal partner with them at the track, and we're gearing up. Tickets go on sale March 27th for the July race. We're really, we've got Ohio Logistics, who's a warehousing company in Findlay, Ohio, that's been our title sponsor for several years, and they've been tremendous help and supporter of the race. We have Racing Optics, the largest maker of tear-offs ever used in NASCAR on the windshield. Of course, all the racing helmets were Racing Optics tear-offs. They're the presenting sponsor, and we have Butler Built, who builds the nicest racing seats in the world. They're part of the deal. So we have a lot of people, a lot of help, and the event's just growing every year. And it's like I tell people it's almost like Christmas morning. When I wake up, especially if the sun's shining on that day of the race, it's almost like Christmas morning to me as a kid. It's just so exciting to put a lot of work and time into this thing. And we open the gates, you see the people start rolling in, and we always have, it's a quarter banked, high banked little bull ring, puts on great racing.
And being in Ohio, and they still do this up here, I want to make sure. You guys have a series during the up in Ohio for a whole week of sprint car racing every night. Is that still going on?
Well, it's died down a little bit, but the Ohio Speed Week, it's the All-Star Circuit of Champions Speed Week. I'm not sure where and what they're going to have this year, but it's down a little. There were times, I think, the highest it was probably 8 or 9 nights in a row, all over the state of Ohio. And I think it's 6 or 7 maybe now. That's still a lot, and people get pretty raced out by the end of the week. But it was I think the original sprint car speed week was right here in Ohio. Now Pennsylvania does one, and I think California may do something similar. But it's crams a lot of racing in a short time. Within, you go within 2 or 3 hours of any track night to night, and these good sprint car racing.
Yeah, big hub. Ohio, Pennsylvania, Iowa, Missouri is still big into it. Minnesota. All the time that you were racing, and I'm kind of going to put you on the spot about this a little bit. Not too bad though. Who was? I know who your hero was, and happens to be one of mine. Who was the guy you loved to race the most, and who was the one you never really wanted to race with?
Oh, gee.
Sorry, I got to put you on the spot on that one.
Well, I guess that first one that comes to mind I never really wanted to race with was Steve Kinzer, because he was so hard, it was and still is so hard to beat. He's as I tease him. I mean, we've become good friends throughout the years. He's greedy. He wants to win them all, and it seemed like for a while he did. And anytime he was around, he was definitely the guy to beat. Boy, the guy. Bobby Davis Jr.'s name came up the other day. He was very, very successful, and won the World of Outlaws Championship one year, and was always right there and competitive. He was probably the most clean racer, at least in my era, that ever raced against. So I guess I would say that the guy I'd like to race with, Bobby Davis Jr., because he was probably one of the cleanest drivers you could ever ask for.
Wow, I haven't heard that name in. Wow.
Yeah, he was. He kind of. What brought his name up recently is Jason Myers. The defending two-time. Well, he's not defending. He's the last 2-year World of Outlaws championship, and he's not going to defend it this year. His team split up, and he doesn't know for sure what he's going to do and where he's going to race. But he's kind of announced he may retire. And Bobby Davis Jr., Mark Kinzer both are a couple of names that kind of walked away from the sport in their prime. They were pretty much still at their peak and winning a lot of races, and they both decided that, as I like to say, they had all the fun they could stand, and they left the sport. And Bobby's said one of those guys that he had a lot of people wondering. His family business, they had a big electrical contracting business down in Memphis area, and I think he always knew that one day he would be running that thing. So he had that to, I don't want to say fall back on, but maybe in the back of his mind he always knew that sprint car racing wasn't what he was going to do for a livelihood his whole life, and he kind of was able to walk away in his prime.
Yeah, that's a name I just haven't heard in a long time. Did you ever? And I don't. You might not be old enough. I hate to say that. Did you ever get a run against Jan Opperman?
No, I didn't. He was a little before my time. I mean, I talk about him a lot. He was, when I was probably 13 or 14, I saw him at Williams Grove Speedway. He used to come to Wayne County Speedway a little bit, but I've got a picture standing next to him. I was maybe 15 at that time. First time we went to the Grove, I think I was 13, but, it was a deal where I probably had said hi to him or got an autograph a couple of times, but I was so in awe of the guy that I was embarrassed or so backward I didn't want to even bother him. I didn't want to go, but just what a super guy. But no, I never did get to race against him.
I've never got to see him either. I've been told when I was a youngin' that I did get to go see him down in Knoxville or someplace like that, but I just don't remember it. But do you get people to come up to you now, now that you brought up your hero, that come up and say, hey, you are my hero, you are my hero?
Yeah, I do. And it's still, it's to use that word, it's flattering, but it seems like a lot of times it'll catch me off guard. It's still, especially the kids, I guess, that obviously they never saw me race, so it's, the parents and things that have been said about me, I guess. When I have kids that want an autograph or want to meet me, that kind of thing, it's, that always sets me back a little bit, and some of the old-timers, I guess, that saw me race, that's one thing, but then also being on TV and being in the sport from that end of it, obviously that's kept me out there and kept my face, kept me visible, and people that never saw me race. They see me on TV, and they may want an autograph for that reason, that kind of thing. And I understand that, but that's just part of the deal.
I was going to bring this up. I don't know. And we'll kind of shoot this one off the cuff. But who is your biggest rivalries? I mean, and I've told this to people a lot of times, and maybe you can kind of help me on this. You might get out and get into a fist fight, but that next night you're usually at the bar drinking beer with them. Did you have any of those kind of incidents?
Well, actually, Steve Kinzer and I actually did. We were both sponsored by Coors Light in '86 and '87, and a lot of people thought we were team cars. We really weren't team cars. We both drove Gambler chassis out of Hendersonville, Tennessee. But Carl Kinzer owned his car, and Mark Kepler owned my car, and we just happened to have Coors Light through the Gambler chassis company. So we weren't really teammates, but we both had Coors Light and raced together. And one night we banged wheels and shaking fists at each other on the racetrack and back and forth, and we were fighting for the lead. He was leading it, and I about had him passed, and I felt like he chopped me off and ran me down in the infield, and so caution came out for somebody else, and I ran into the back of him and bumped him, and he put me the finger, showed me I was number one, and took my fist back. Well, we finished 1-2 in the race, and we get up they had a big semi-trailer, and the race is sponsored by Coors Light. Also, one of the it was out in Iowa, and one of the big distributorships out there actually sponsored the race. So it was a big Coors Light night. Here, Steve and I run 1 and 2, and we're up on the trailer, about ready to start swinging, and we should be happy celebrating this 1 and 2 finish at a Coors Light race. And we had some words. It got a little heated, but we realized that probably wasn't time or place, and I was pretty dumb, but I was smart enough to realize that he'd probably knock my head off my shoulder. Luckily it didn't go that far.
I'm sure that later on that night a few Coors Lights were passed around after that.
It didn't take long to get over it, I guess. Yeah,
yeah.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, matter of fact, I brought it up, and I talk about it in the book, and he swears he doesn't even remember it. So that's how much it meant to him. It's just another night to him.
Well, yeah, probably. Well, look how much y'all race. Things like that.
Oh yeah, running 80 to 100 nights a year. You're not going to remember every night. Of course, he won the race, so he went down the road and forgot about it, and it always my crawl, so to speak, that I got beat, and so that's probably why I remember it so well.
Probably why you remember. Do you have it? And this will be my last question for you because I know we're running late here.
Okay.
But is there one memory that sticks out more than anything else in your career?
Well, the first thing that comes to mind, and if any of your listeners happen to see it, 10 years after my accident, I got back in the car at Eldora Speedway with hand controls. The guy restored the Coors Light car and called me up one day, and I actually got my fire suit out and got in the car for some pictures for back then. It was Open Wheel Magazine, and I guess anybody that's interested in this stuff will have to get the book, won't they? Because all this is in detail in the book and pictures of the car that night.
Exactly.
But we were doing live TV on TNN. I was actually in the booth working with Steve Evans, calling the race live on TV. We did the B main, up to the B main. I got out of the booth, hopped in my wheelchair, hopped in my van, put my fire suit on, slid it up on, got it on, got back in my wheelchair. I hopped in the sprint car at Eldora Speedway. We fired the engine, pushed it in the infield, and I went out with hand controls and made a couple of hot laps, which they watered the track. I was a little disappointed. I couldn't get going very good. And I paced the 4 abreast pace laps for the Kings Royal at Eldora, the very same track that my career ended. And I drove the car out the back pit gate of the racetrack. A push truck got on me, pushed me back around to the grandstand. I got hopped out of the race car, got in my wheelchair. They got me back up in the booth, and by that time the feature had gone green. There were 4 laps down in the main event, and I called the rest of the race on live TV with my fire suit on, sitting next to Steve Evans, and that was a night that I'll never, ever forget. We had a microphone in my helmet where I could talk to Steve Evans when I was out on the racetrack. But to finish calling that race on live TV with my fire suit on where thousands of people and people around the world got to see me get back. That's the one and only time I've been back in a race car since my accident. So that will always be the one that stands out to me.
I'm going to ask you to Brad. I'm going to ask you to hold on. We're going to get signed off here, and I'm going to say this before we do. DaveArgabright.com still wide open. A great story. Anybody that wants to know anything about sprint car racing, this is one of the other books you need to go get. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Doc, are we good to go?
You going to tell everybody to come back and see us next week?
See us next week. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thanks.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Natalie Sather. I drive the 94 K&N Lady Eagle Safety Wear, Butler built seats, bell helmets, hooker harness seatbelts, number 94 at South Boston Speedway. Be sure to listen to Let's Talk Racing TV.
I'm Sam Hunt, drive 42 car on the thing, Let's Talk Racing.
Hey guys, I'm Daytona 500 winner Trevor Bain, and thank you for watching Let's Talk Racing.
Hi, I'm Robert Richardson Jr., driver of the number 23 Dodge Challenger for R3 Motorsports in the NASCAR Nationwide Series, and you're watching Let's Talk Racing.
I'm Teddy Peter, driver of the number 17 Toyota NASCAR Camp World Truck Series, and you're listening to Let's Talk Racing.
Let's Talk Racing is brought to you by PC Doctors, Computer Sales and Services. This doctor still makes house calls. And also Hampton Incredible Tees and Signs, both located at 1248 North King Street in Hampton, Virginia.